So here are a few things. You will be assigned, in fact, we're going to do so in just a moment, assigned questions from the Qualitative Exam Study Guide that you are going to be responsible to present to us over the next 2 class sessions. You already have access to the study guide, but let me bring it up very quickly. And you'll see that I have given you 16 questions here. And we have 15 of us in the class, so I will assign the first 15 questions to you, and then I will answer question 16. Okay? So, and I don't want to spend really real time on these questions right now. We'll come back to them in a few minutes, but you have this available to you. You're going to be expected to give us fully constructed answers and present those to us during the next 2 classes on the 13th and 15th in review sessions. I want you to create a PowerPoint slide or possibly a couple of slides that are your answers to the question that you've been assigned. And these will be partially qualitative, so words, and partially quantitative in terms of using the equations. So let me come back here and tell you what I mean by that. So here I've got the first question: under what condition does the equation, well, the equation is a free cash flow model, so under what conditions the equation free cash flow model yield the same results as the equation Gordon growth model? But I'm giving you the equations for free cash flow model and the equation for Gordon growth model. Well, looking at that, does anybody have a just real simple off the top of your head answer? When would value using the Gordon growth model equal value using the fully extended free cash flow model?
When long-term growth equals explicit growth.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. So an example of presenting this would be putting the question onto a PowerPoint slide, and you can literally just copy it because you have this as a Word document, so you can literally just copy and paste this, and the equational structures will remain intact when you do that. Well, it shouldn't change them. And then you could then tell us that since the sum of the free cash flows here and we've got a growth rate there, we've got a growth rate here, when those growth rates are the same, then we can use this equation. You might even have to tell me that this equation, the Gordon growth equation, is simply a perpetual form of this at a constant rate of growth. I just want you to do that in some PowerPoint slides, and for 2 reasons. We're going to share those PowerPoint slides, but only visually. I'm not going to post them on Canvas, so nobody else is going to have your answers other than having seen you present it, but they can go back to the video and they can watch it again, right? So we're going to present them, but I also want you to be able to have a visual image that you'll bring up, because when we do the presentation, we're going to have you share your screen with us, so you can present your answer. And when you share the screen, you'll bring up your PowerPoint slide that you'll already have on your system, and then you'll walk us through what you've done. So here's something that some of you either on in the session at the moment or listening to it by the video afterwards aren't going to love. But in order to get, you must participate in these presentations. So we don't always have everyone participating in this session, but you must participate in the review sessions in order to get credit for this. So I'll say something on WhatsApp about that for the few people that aren't necessarily with us, but you must be here. I will assign the questions to each of you in just a second, but I will then ask you to present them by random assignment on the next 2 classes. That way I will get everyone paying attention to both of and all of the classes, okay? And then I'm going to want you to submit your PowerPoints to me in Canvas no later than the end of the day on the 15th. So you don't have to present them to me in Canvas until after you've presented them in to the class. So these are some
How long are you expecting each presentation?
That's a good question. So let me do a quick calculation. And the answer is it doesn't have to be terribly long. So maybe 5 minutes, maybe.
However long it's got to be. Well.
Yeah, however long it's got to be. Now, problem is if it goes too long, we can't get them all done in 2 sessions, right? Yeah. So however long it's got to be. But honestly, my guess, Will, is that your presentations will be 3, 4, 6 minutes, short. And I will be following up with each of your presentations with questions I'm going to ask you and comments with respect to the answer you came up with. So I'm going to critique you some. And the critique will be partially for your benefit and partially for everyone's benefit so they can get a sense of what's going on here. And that may take as long as you presenting the question.
And to clarify, the test will be composed of 4 or 5 of these questions. Is that correct?
Exactly. You just don't know which 4 or 5 they'll be.
Number 5 looks like a good one you should pick.
Does it? Let me look at it. I don't have the memorized by number. Oh, yeah. I would tend to agree with you.
Well, that's just because that's the one I have to do it on, too.
Okay. Got it. All right. Actually, I think they're all good questions, but you would expect me to think that since I wrote them. Okay. And you should know that they are at least somewhat redundant. So I would say that about half of these questions kind of dovetail into each other. There's some overlap. So asking you only 4 or 5 of them, I still am asking you about a pretty broad range of items. Okay. So.
And can we also create an Excel sheet if like you are doing, if you have an example and just switch from the PowerPoint to the Excel sheet and show like if there's some changes or I don't know.
You are certainly welcome to do that, Martin. But that brings a point that I neglected to put on the slide, but I think is important. When you are answering these questions on our assessment, you are welcome to answer them in the abstract. You do not need to use numbers. You can use variables. You're telling me what's going on with this. You're helping me understand some interpretive elements. If you would like to use numbers, that's just fine. However, if you're going to use the numbers, make sure you're using them right. Because if you use them and use them wrong or incorrectly, that will not serve you well. Okay? So good question. Okay, so let's look at this. So I've gone ahead and posted in the assignment or in the preparation assignment this list, and I literally took in the alphabetical list, and there's 15 of you, and I've assigned you the questions based upon where you fell in the alphabet. So Martin, you got number 1, and Ada, you've got number 15, and the rest of you are kind of spread throughout. So let's go back to the questions for a second. Let me give you an idea. So I'm going to end up answering the question, explain the concept of production value. Okay, I'm going to take question number 16. So let me give you a real brief example of how I would expect this kind of a question to be answered. And you can then think about all the rest of the questions in similar context. So if I'm responsible to explain production value to you, and if I want to get all the available points for understanding production value as I'm answering this on an exam, I'm going to remind you that there are 3 ways in which firms value assets. There is book value or an asset-based value. There is a market value, which might be a multiples-based value. And there is a production value, which is going to be synonymous with an income-based approach. So it begs the question, what does a firm produce? Well, if I'm a consumer, the firm produces whatever its output good is, shoes, skis, cars, services, whatever. But I'm not a consumer with this. I'm an investor, right? I'm a stakeholder. Well, what's it produce for me as a stakeholder? It produces cash flow. And so if it produces cash flow, and if I've told you that there's a value that we can assign based upon what it produces, this must be a value that we're assigning based upon cash flow. Well, can any of us think of some equational forms or models that can assign a value based upon cash flow? Well, of course we can. We have the free cash flow model. We have the APV model. We have the KVD model. And each of those bring cash flow into it. In the free cash flow model, cash flow is brought in as the variable in both the explicit and the continuation term, and it's in the numerator. In the KVD model, free cash flow is the cash flow variable in the explicit period, but the KVD form of free cash flow is the cash flow variable in the continuation period. In the APV model, we use both free cash flow and an additional cash flow, which would be the tax shield. And in so doing, in answering this question, I would put up in front of you a graphic example of each equation as I'm discussing. So that's how I would go through this. I would not necessarily tell us everything about about numbers in this. I'm talking to you in the abstract. I might even go so far as to suggest that market value, production value, and book value are probably going to be the exact same value. We just got to them different ways. So that's an example of how I might answer one of the questions. But I would have a PowerPoint to do it as well. Any questions? Okay, so you've got plenty to think about. You got a little bit of constructing to do. Then on Monday and Wednesday of next week, you're going to be presenting your individual answers. I would be taking notes, by the way, if I were you, and I probably would go back through and look at the videos afterwards as part of your preparation for the assessment. And then when we see each other the next time after those 2 practice sessions, I will actually give you 4 or 5 questions. And you'll then have a period of time in which to answer them, and you'll submit your answers on Canvas.
And so we all need to be on Zoom when we take the actual exam, correct?
No, we're not going to do the exam by Zoom, Will. The exam will be done, I will have put the questions in the assignment. I'll close the assignment such that you can't see the assignment until it opens up at a certain time. That's why you've got both a practice assignment and the real one, okay? And the practice one has all the questions, and the real one has the ones you're going to be held accountable for that I'm going to ask, okay? So you'll see.
Excuse my interruption.
Yeah.
The four real or 4 or 5, what have you, real ones will be from the original list.
They will
16,
be 4 or
right?
5 of these questions, yes.
Okay.
They won't be kind of like them. They won't be sort of like them. They will be them. Exactly.
Okay, great.
Good question.
Thanks.
Good question. So when you see the exam will open it up at a specific time. You'll be given a time frame in which to answer it. It'll close at a time. And when it closes, you must have submitted the Excel file, or rather the Word file. You don't need an Excel file, but you must have submitted the Word file, which is your answer.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Will the time frame be kind of based around our class time?
You know, I think it will. I think it will. I'm going to take you off of share for a moment so I can see everyone here, or try to see everyone. And I've got a lot of you at just boxes at the moment, so you may go ahead. I'm gonna want to see a response from you here. So please go ahead and turn on your cameras. Give you a moment to do that. Do any of you have classes or other obligations directly following the 12 o'clock time? Pete, Will, Jane, okay, all right.
Do you know if is it going to be on that following Monday?
It'll be on that following Monday. So
Okay.
now the other question, do any of you have obligations directly before the 10 o'clock time?
I have a class.
Okay, all right. Well, in which case, I will keep us to the 2 hours, and I will choose a number of questions that have a rigor that will be commensurate with that.
Okay.
So I think you'll be able to reasonably answer within 2 hours. I'll hold it to the 2 hours.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments with respect to any of what we've discussed today?
I had kind of a quick one on the Excel file that was due today.
Mhm.
I think I might have mentioned it to you prior, but I would get the same whole number as the ones you provided on your Canvas kind of screenshots of your Excel sheet, but they were like 0.2 off.